Okay, welcome everybody. Maybe Carol, if you could mute yourself, and Bima. Those are the only two people that are on the call that haven't muted themselves, and we're getting some background noise. So welcome everybody. This is Humanities Team, Conversations with God Book Club. And we're reading Conversations with God. Let's see, let me get to the book. Hello. So we're reading Tomorrow's God, Our Greatest Spiritual Challenge. And we're on chapter 23, Sex and Spirituality. And this is Neil speaking to start with. Okay, so now down to sex. What is it with human beings that they have such hang-ups about sex? Will the new spirituality change all that? And this is God. Tomorrow's God will make it very clear that sexual expression is a celebration of life. And since the words life and God are interchangeable, sexual expression is a celebration of God. That is correct. That is exactly correct. Then why are so many human beings so ashamed of it? Because they have been taught to be. They have been told to be. Some of them even believe that they have been ordered to be by yesterday's God. This is Neil. When I belonged to the Catholic Church, I was taught that the purpose of marriage and of sex was the propagation of the race, because that was its purpose. Any attempt to stop the process okay, so somebody has shared their screen. Okay, I'm back now to where I was. Okay, when I belonged to the Catholic Church, I was taught that the purpose of marriage and of sex was the propagation of the race, because that was its purpose. Any attempt to stop the process of procreation was seen as an intervention in the will of God, and thus an offense against the Most High. So Catholic families often had 5, 6, 7, 8 children. I was told point blank that to use any type of contraceptive is a sin. The only non-sinful form of family planning that God allows, I was told, is the rhythm method, when sex is avoided during the fertile period of the woman's menstrual cycle, and engaged in during what the growing family hopes is the non-fertile period. This is a backward and primitive way of dealing with life's most natural expression of love. This is God. I have no judgment about that. Neil, well, you have no judgment about anything. God, that is correct. Neil, also when I was a child, I was taught in my school and by my culture that my body was something to be ashamed of. And so I should never allow myself to be seen naked. I should also never allow, or I should also never yearn to see any other body naked. This was a sin, and I should feel ashamed. In some cultures, it's not even acceptable for the body to be seen naked during the act of sex. The lights must be out, and the partners must be at least partially clothed. Some of these taboos are slowly fading away, but a startling number of people are still affected by them. This is true. Do you think it is right that human beings should have been made to feel so guilty about sex? This is God. There is no such thing as right and wrong. There is only what works and what doesn't work, given what it is that you're trying to do. So what are you trying to do here? Well, I'm not sure we know. I'm not sure that humanity is clear about that. Some of us are trying to do one thing, some of us are trying to do another. I only know what I'm choosing to do with my sexuality. What's that? I'm choosing to celebrate my humanity and my love for life and my love for another and my love for myself through the just giving and receiving of exquisite physical pleasure, and to create, express, and experience the unified ecstasy of oneness with my beloved. I'm choosing to express and experience this without shame or guilt or embarrassment of any kind, but with a childlike openness and wonder and a very adult appreciation and beholding of the beauty and the intensity and the breathtaking excitement of total physical, emotional, and spiritual intimacy with another human being. Well, why don't you tell us how you really feel? You asked, I answered. This is God, you certainly did. And that might as well be the end of our dialogue on this topic, because you have just said what the new spirituality will teach. Yes, really? Yes, really. In the days of the new spirituality, human sexuality will be experienced as the joyous celebration of life and the glorious expression of godliness that it was always meant to be. It will be expressed without embarrassment or shame or guilt, and without restrictions or limitations of any kind, except those that are voluntarily self-imposed. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a world like that? Yes, and the advent of the new spirituality will do much to bring you to a place where all of you can create such a world. You've been saying through this dialogue that this day is coming, and I'm seeing that you are right. The Episcopal Church approved the election of its first openly gay bishop on the very day that we are having this dialogue. Isn't that interesting? These look like the beginnings of humanity's first early tentative embracings of tomorrow's God. Some very courageous church leaders have had the courage to say out loud and in public that the God of their understanding finds acceptable a man who holds a sexual orientation different from theirs. This is God. This is an example of the kind of unconditional love that soon all of you will understand to be the gift of tomorrow's God. Yet right now, there are still some holdouts who believe that yesterday's God does not love without condition, but only if we do things his way. The daring action taken by the Episcopal Church in the United States did not go easily, as the news.
Well, I'm not sure what happened. Can anybody hear Linda?
No.
Well, let's give her a minute, and then
Hello?
there you are.
Can
We
you hear me?
wondered. Now we can. Are
When
you still,
did it break out?
Oh, like a minute ago.
Right before the news story.
What is this going on?
What? We just lost Linda's communication. It's all fixed now. Okay, so Linda, you want to go
Which
ahead?
I have no idea. Yeah,
I couldn't
but don't know where
understand
to start.
saying.
You couldn't understand what I was saying?
I couldn't understand what Nanette was saying. I just got on the call.
Yeah, we've got it figured out now. We just lost communication, but it's back.
Oh, okay.
And I think you were at the top of page. I don't know what page is.
356. Page 356. And it was right before there's a long article that he's going to quote. The daring action taken by the Episcopal Church in the United States did not go easy.
Okay.
Is where we lost you.
Okay. Which I have no idea because I'm just sitting here reading. So, okay. Okay, so this is God speaking. Minneapolis, August 6th. Episcopal leaders voted to approve the election of their first openly gay bishop, risking a possible exodus of conservatives who said their grief over the decision was too deep for words. The Episcopal General Convention on Tuesday took the final vote needed to confirm the Reverend V. Gene Robinson as a bishop of the Diocese of New Hampshire. The bishops voted 62 to 45 to confirm Robinson's election. 2 bishops abstained, but their ballots under church rules were counted as no votes. Some convention delegates who opposed Robinson left the meeting in tears. This is a quote. This body willfully confirming the election of a person sexually active outside of holy matrimony has departed from the historic faith and order of the Church of Jesus Christ. That's Pittsburgh Bishop Robert Duncan. This body has divided itself from millions of Anglican Christians around the world, close quote. Duncan called on the bishops of the Anglican community and Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, head of the communion, to, quote, intervene in the pastoral emergency that has overtaken us. May God have mercy on his church, Duncan said. 18 other bishops signed his statement. This is Neil. I find it interesting, but not too surprising, that Bishop Duncan referring to God, described the Episcopal Church as his church. It is just this kind of ownership people throughout the world claim that God has of their church that creates such separation between people. Catholics say their church is his church, and Muslims say that their faith is the one true faith of Allah.
Nu funkar det. Vad konstigt.
Hello? Hello?
Sorry, it was me. Because I couldn't, there was no sound, so I had to call my son or help me to get it handled. So now it's okay. Now I can hear you and you can hear me. Okay?
Okay.
Sorry for disturbing.
Okay. Catholics say that their church is his church, and Muslims say that their faith is the one true faith of Allah. And Mormons say that their seventh heaven is God's real heaven. And Jehovah's Witnesses say that the elect have been called by God and that no one else is going to heaven. This is God speaking. Tomorrow's God says that every church is his church, and every faith is her faith, and every soul is God's soul, because it shares the same soul with God. And no one person or living thing in the universe stands outside of the community of God. Not even people who have lots and lots of sex? I beg your pardon? Well, there are people who believe that it's possible to have too much sex to allow one to advance spiritually. They say that spirituality and sexuality do not mix. So let me just ask you directly, does sexual energy interfere with spiritual energy? Does the expression of it deplete one's energy reserve, making it difficult or impossible to achieve spiritual awakening? Well, if that were true, then life would be working against the purpose of life itself. The purpose of life is to evolve, yet if the physical act that creates life and expresses love reduces the prospects of evolution, wouldn't that be a huge flaw in the workings of the universe? Sure seems to me that it would be. I can assure you that life was not put together that haphazardly. It is not true that sexual expression inhibits spiritual awakening. Not even a lot of it. It is true that too much emphasis on anything produces imbalance and depletion of energies. Too much work, too much eating, too much drinking, too much sugar, gardening, bowling, swimming, TV, carrot juice, sex, too much of anything, even too much spiritual practice can create an imbalance. The Buddha discovered that. He experienced that enlightenment could not be achieved through the practice of self-indulgence, but neither could it be achieved through the practice of self-deprivation or self-mortification. In fact, it was achieved on the middle path between the two, where all things are kept in balance. There is more to say on this matter of enlightenment and how to achieve it, And since the enlightenment of the whole humanity will be a major goal of the new spirituality, we will be discussing this as our end of our conversation about tomorrow's God. Good. Is that next? That's next when we're done talking about sexuality, although I am not sure you're going to be happy with me when we get to that topic, but we'll see. Why not? Why wouldn't I be happy? You'll see when you get there. Oh, great. Now I have to sit here on pins and needles. No, you don't. Stay in the moment of now. Thank you. I don't do that very often, but a lot of people do, and I'm glad I did it just then because this is a good example of what makes people crazy sometimes. I observe that a habit of many humans is something that I have called futurizing. People get into the future in their mind rather than staying in the present moment. Everything is perfect right here, right now, but they go off in the future in their head and make their present moment completely discombobulated. For some reason, I have hardly ever done that in my life, but you sure caught me doing it just then. I supposed that when God says I may not be happy with God, my ears have to go to perk up. So I was looking a little bit ahead, but I'm back now, back in the present moment, and I want to say that I'm glad that an active sex life does nothing to reduce spiritual awareness. I think I knew that, but I'm glad to hear you confirm it. Sex is not what most people think it is anyway. I know. Sex is synergetic energy exchange. It is the energy that is exchanged between any two people who encounter each other. And the question is not whether they are having sex, but what is the quality of it? What kind of synergistic energy exchange is going on? So someone is really having sex with everyone all the time. That is correct. It is impossible for human beings not to exchange energy when they come into contact with each other. This exchange is just what happens. Where it goes, what it leads to, is up to each person having the experience. Can people have sex, I mean the physical intercourse kind, with anyone? I mean, is that okay? Or should this experience be reserved for one or two people for the rest of a person's life? There is no should or shouldn't here. What kind of a person does one choose to be with regard to this matter? That is the question. I know my answer. What is it? I want to be the kind of person who would never have a sexual experience with another who does not desire that experience with me. I want to be the kind of person who would never force himself on anybody and who would never even invite another to have a sexual experience if I felt that they were not old enough or mature enough or emotionally healed enough or mentally stable enough to make such a decision. I want to be a person who keeps his sexual agreements with others, who can be counted on to stay in integrity around that. Good, then be that person. But I want everybody to be that kind of person. Yes, well, everybody is not going to be that kind of person. Even you are not always that kind of person. I know, but what would it take for more of us to be all the time? Greater self-awareness plus a more complete understanding of the purpose of life itself. When you truly embrace tomorrow's God, you will have a greater sense of this. You will bring greater self-awareness into every moment and every choice, including your choices around sexuality. Many people are doing this now, and their movement into greater self-awareness is actually paving the way for the new spirituality. Still, sex crimes are rampant in our society. That is because sexual repression is rampant. Wherever you see sexual repression, you will see sexual crime and sexual dysfunction. Is that why the Catholic Church has so much trouble with priests acting in sexually inappropriate ways? It is precisely why. We really are, as a species, all mixed up about this. We're willing to allow our children to see incredible violence on movie screens. But if we hear that the picture has graphic sexual content, we're offended and scandalized and run out of the place, demanding to see the manager. What is that all about? It's about the mixed signals that you have given yourselves as a human culture. You hate violence, but you love to watch it. You love sex, but you hate to watch it. Actually, many people love to watch it. They just hate to admit that they love to watch it. And they certainly don't want their children to watch it. Yikes. Maybe we should just pass more laws against sexual expression, and that will take care of the problem. Laws about human sexual expression are not observed to be beneficial to humanity. Well, they're all broken anyways. Exactly. So all they do is create more anger, shame, guilt, and hiding out around our sexual behavior. That's what's true. Yet surely there should be some laws, such as the law against rape. That is not a law against sexual expression. That is a law against assault. Assault of any kind, defined as the unwarranted and unwanted physical advance of one person against another, is against the law. Humanity has agreed upon that. Well, what about laws prohibiting discrimination on sexual preferences? Or what about so-called hate crime legislation, which imposes additional penalties if an act of aggression is committed because of a person's race, gender, sexual lifestyle, or nationality? Those too are not laws prohibiting or regulating sexual expression. I have no judgment on any of them. Humanity has to decide for itself about them. I think that the last law actually prohibiting an actual form of sexual expression in the United States was a law against what had been labeled sodomy. And that law was finally struck down by the United Supreme Court in the summer of 2003. I do not feel that the private sexual behavior of two consenting adults is the appropriate purview of the law, the courts, or any facet of the criminal justice system. And the U.S. Supreme Court apparently agrees. Still, many people howled. Yes, let's get back to the discussion we had earlier about how many people wanting civil law to be based on religious values. It may benefit humanity to explore the thought that where there is no civil damage, no civil law should be created or enforced. Does that include law against prostitution? In many places, prostitution is legal. Yes, I know. In Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, and Switzerland, it's openly practiced as a business, complete with storefronts. And in fact, the simple act of exchanging money for sexual services is legal in most countries of the world. It's not legal in the United States, except in most Nevada counties, where, strangely, it is. So what then? This is God. So what then is the issue with prostitution? Morality or geography? Any other questions? This is Neil. Yes, I know. I don't really have any more questions on sexuality. Now that I'm having this conversation with you, I'm realizing that I've answered most of my questions on the subject to my satisfaction. This is God. Answering your own questions to your own satisfaction is the mark of a student moving to mastery. Well, now, I didn't say that. No, I did. Earlier, you came up with your own answer on the purpose of relationship. Now you experience yourself having all the answers you need with regard to your own sexuality. And in a moment, you are about to prove that you have all your own answers on the biggest question of all. I am? You are. End of chapter.
I'm going to have you lead this for a few minutes. Thank you, Linda.
I had something to say, if that's okay.
Yes, please, Mary.
The aspect that I had a little bit of trouble with was, you know, obviously rape is a crime of not sex, but assault. And the consent issue and all. The issue I had was like with underage consent, basically. And if God doesn't judge anything, that kind of put that into a tricky area for me, I guess, you know, when a younger than consent age person thinks that they are making a free will choice to be with someone a lot older, because when they're roughly the same age, that is. Anyway, I don't know. It just was sort of like I felt confused about how to feel about that. I mean, do I just not judge that? I don't know. Anyway, that's all. That was the thing I felt confused about. Thank you.
Well, you bring up a good point, because it isn't for us to judge, and yet at the same time, is it appropriate for a 13-year-old girl to be having sex? No, it's not, and I don't think that that's a judgment. I think what that is I don't know. I mean, I hope I'm not just making up a justification here, but basically, with a minor, your body isn't ready. You're not emotionally ready. Nothing's ready yet. And so I think even God would think that it's probably not the best thing to be doing, involving anybody that's not a mature individual into sex. I mean, I know that kids do it all the time. And from that point, we don't want to judge it, but other than to recognize that it's probably not a good thing for them because they're not emotionally ready. They're not physically ready, not ready yet. I don't know if that response makes any sense to anybody, but.
Well, it's better than my own confusion, so thank you.
Now, wasn't that an enthusiastic agreement, Mary?
Unmute so you can hear me laughing. I mean, I guess it helps me with my puzzlement. I just will probably have to ponder a little more. Anyone else got anything to add?
Well, I'm just finding that my temper is quite, like my tolerance for stuff is becoming quite low. Because I'm cooped in, you know.
You are not the only one. I like a few hundred Facebook friends, many of whom I know in person. And they're, if I don't know them in person, I still have pretty strong connections with most of the people. And boy, 3 of these people, 2 of whom I love and adore, have known for years, one who's pretty new, but they're all like peace-loving, great women, got into some stuff on my page. And it was like, this never happens, almost never. And it was like, people are, a lot of people are, anger's up. So you are far from the only one.
Oh, I thought I was unique. How are you doing, Mary Laurie? Is she still on the call, Linda?
I don't
So
think
who's
so.
one?
I just see Anne. I see Anne.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I called her. I'm sorry. It's my blood sugar.
Yes, I'm here.
I
Hi.
the wrong name. I'm glad you answered to it.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm having a hard time with, I love my mom so much, and she lived so long. She's going to be 98. And who knows if I'll ever be able to see her again, you know? And that's part of this, because I can't visit her or see her. But we do have, video chats and FaceTime and all that stuff, which is kind of interesting. And then with Daryl, my friend, who's in the home, with Parkinson's, it's been 3 weeks and they haven't connected me with him. And I'm like ready to go to the newspapers and complain or something that I have no idea how he's doing, and nobody will return my calls and nobody will bring the phone to him. Their cordless phone's always broken and he can't use the phone. He doesn't remember how, so somebody's got to hold the phone. And it's been 3 weeks and I'm very concerned. I'm wondering if he'll even remember me when this thing comes up. I just hope he's okay is more what I'm concerned about.
Is his paperwork say that you can have contact with him?
Of course, yes. I'm his
Okay,
legal,
good.
I'm
Good,
legally,
okay.
yeah.
Well, then
Yeah,
there
it's
shouldn't be
just-
any problem with that.
Yeah, they're just bad. And I keep trying. I've tried now for the last 2 weeks to reach the director of nursing there, and she doesn't return my calls. So I don't know what to do. I went over there once, but that does no good because they're in lockdown and nobody will talk to you or deal with you, so I don't know. Anyway, so that's had me a little concerned about those two things. And the other thing, though, is that I'm busier now than I was before this whole thing, because with all the Zoom and I'm going to school and everything, there's like so much more work and so much more contact and so many more people that are out there that need to be worked with, and so it's very busy. The work that we're doing is what's needed on the planet now. As we get through this, it's all the light workers and healers and people that have been doing this group's been doing. All of us are creating this whole new God's world network.
Anne, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm getting a little bit anxious. I'm in Canada, and we've got horror stories coming out from seniors' homes across the country, in provinces, all from one end of the country to the other. So it's not just in one place. And I'm wondering what the seniors' homes are like in your state.
Well, I don't know much. I do know that the home that Daryl's in, no one there as residents or anybody who works there has gotten the virus.
How would you know, though?
I do call all the time, and every now and then somebody picks up the phone, and so I ask them. And as far as what they said, that's what they told me, is that nobody's gotten sick. But
Okay.
I can't speak for, there's a lot, I can't speak because I'm not knowledgeable about other homes or something like that, other than I know Nanette's in a facility. Those are the only facilities I know of.
What state are you in? I'm sorry, you just told me a minute ago.
It's okay. I'm in Boca Raton, Florida.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, you've told me that before. I'm sorry, it's my senior's moment, although I'm not a senior yet. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that would you consider asking the police to go and check if they won't let you in? Because in Canada, a lot of people are saying that, exactly what you're telling us, that there's no access and you are the legal guardian. So it's not as if your anxiety is probably everyone else's. There are a lot of people there who are probably in the same situation, can't get through to their folks.
Well, I wouldn't call the police. That's not how I would address it. But what I will do is I will start, since I can't reach the thing, nursing, I'll now try to go to the director of the whole place. I just keep going up the line, or, just pursuant to finding somebody who can connect me so that I can at least speak to Daryl or hear from him, or, but it's hard because he's not responsive. You know what I mean? It's like he really can't have a conversation anymore. So it's a very difficult situation.
Will they wheel him to the door so you
Well,
can
we
just
did
see
that.
him?
I did that one time, and what happened was that he didn't understand why I couldn't come in, and he started crying, reaching out and carrying on, and he didn't understand why I couldn't come in or what was going on. And I felt it was so much more drastic. They even brought a phone, and I tried to explain, but you can't explain to, he can't understand what's going on. All he could understand was that I was outside the door and I wouldn't come in, and he kept reaching out to me. It was really sad. I thought that made things so much worse. People come to the door to visit my mother, and she doesn't like it. It makes her feel even worse. So she says. So I don't know, I do believe in prayer, though.
Yeah, I do have a joke about that one.
Okay.
I prayed for Nanette and her roommate. And when Nanette said the roommate was fine, I was thinking, why did I bother to pray?
Well, she just got all of her tests back, so I think the praying did good, because she had to go through a battery of tests, and they all came back fine.
Well, maybe we'll all bother to pray for Daryl then.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
You want to let me do the meditation before we continue any further, Linda, Nanette?
That's fine with me. Linda, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
All right.
Lord God, I'm glad you've got a sense of humor, because it was a joke about why did I bother to pray for Nanette's roommate and Nanette. And she's looking better. And I thank you for this. Now we're all bothering to pray for Daryl. I hope you get the joke in that. Our hearts go out to all the people who are locked in and can't get out at all, and don't have the capacity to understand why. And the caregivers are overworked and anxious. Everyone's feeding on fear. But the two words which are most commonly used in the Bible are fear not. So right here, right now, all of us are uniting our hearts in confidently, faithfully dispelling the fear, particularly what is generated by the news media and the leadership. We are representing you. Our strength and peace are far greater than this cloud of darkness. We are united in bringing faith, hope, and love right back into the world. And we thank you for your peace, which passes understanding. Help us to spread it. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Well, a few minutes ago, I looked at the next chapter, and I think it's way too long to start reading it. You're only going to get like 2 or 3 pages in. So, does anybody else have any comments on what the chapter we just read?
I just want to say something if I can.
Mhm.
That's all right. It's not so much about the chapter. It's kind of, well, mind you, it probably the chapter comes into it. You know, when we get into fear, you know, I realize this is what I've realized for myself. I lose all my power, and then that makes me more vulnerable, and that's what they want, because they want to force the vaccine on everybody. Vaccines are very dangerous, and also unproven, a whole lot of it. But there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes. But the thing is about imbalance, isn't it? Doesn't in that chapter you read, they said, well, even too much spirituality is imbalance. Too much anything is imbalance. So we need to go in the middle line. And yeah, this is what I thought about being more empowered. That my power would be I would be empowered by growing the Christic substance. That would be the empowerment. That's because we do need to be empowered now. Look at the people in the nursing homes; they're very vulnerable. Maybe that's why we feel it more, because we're kind of in our homes, but we got a bit more freedom. So at the moment. So I thought Jesus was very he was joined with the Father, wasn't he? He was completely connected, and he did the work he was here to do, and he stuck to that. So that would be maybe that would keep us balanced. And maybe for the communication to the people in the nursing homes, I think it's nice maybe we send a letter and a card and stuff. Maybe that could get in. That might be nice. Okay,
That's
thank
a good
you.
idea. Also, the only thing that I got from the reading today was about having greater self-awareness. And I think that I noticed that I've been worrying about other things, and I've been looking at other people's red flags, and I missed a few of my own. And it's like, it all begins with yourself. So it's kind of like the coronavirus. The reason that we're being contained and told to stay home and everything is to care for ourselves, so that one, we don't get infected, and two, that we don't infect anybody else. But maybe the only thing we can do right now is step up ourselves by having greater self-awareness of what we're doing and what we can do, and just start there and have that be the seed that goes out. That's just my only thought.
That's a very good thought, Anne. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How are you doing, Sarah Summerson?
I'm much better, thank you, Shabana. But I really liked what Anne Darby said about balance, because I thought we could think about that quite a lot more, about too much or too little of things, and it maybe it applies to what Mary said right at the beginning as well, that God's not judging anything we do, particularly sexually, but allowing us to make the decisions. But it doesn't mean we can't make the decisions. We can make the decisions about something like someone who's underage, or about something being too much for somebody, and about balance. We're, in a way, God gives us the power through the books to make these choices and decisions. I don't hear that God's saying everything is okay, but more handing it over to us, really. But that's just my thought anyway. Thank you.
I like that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, that gets back to that. Does it work or does it not work? And it's based on what result you're trying to obtain. And so often we go about it in all the wrong ways to get what we want.
And going back to the 13-year-old and the sexuality, instead of brushing with a very broad stroke, I think about when my own kids were 13. And how maturity-wise and emotionally, they weren't prepared to have a sexual experience. And I'm very lucky that none of them were seeking out sexual activity, to my knowledge, at that young of an age. I think it happened more when they were 15, which they still aren't. But I guess if we look at it from a parent's point of view, I'm thinking that 13, and it is being judgmental, but I think 13-year-olds are just not, they don't have the right ammunition, armor, sorry for using the war terms, but they don't have that right kind of protection to know how to deal with that. Because it's a very big deal to have sexual intercourse, to lose your virginity. And that's all I've got to say. Over.
What's really interesting to me is people don't even realize or understand the energetic connections of when you're having sex, that it's just more than that. You're taking on someone else's DNA. and there are energetic components. That person isn't just with you for that one time you sleep with them. You carry their energy for quite some time. I don't really know the statistics about the energetic thing, but we are connected. And I mean, look, if long distance healing works, we work through phone lines and it works and things work. How do you think being the person and exchanging that way, it has an energy consequence too to it. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I think you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The only response I had to what Nanette was saying is like, they aren't ready, and we can look at that and say they aren't ready, but they don't know that they aren't ready. I mean, I remember, 13 was a long time ago, but I still remember how I felt, and I had no clue that I wasn't ready for anything sexual to happen. I'm really glad that I wasn't in a position to follow my wayward impulses anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
well, I don't think our brains are fully formed yet at that age either.
So we have no idea what we're ready for or not. And as for what you said, Anne, it is really interesting that even like grown up people and, a lot of people have no concept of that energetic exchange that's taking place. You think it's just a physical act, like a lot of people think, and I thought too in the past. And it is, it is more than that. And most people don't.
Yeah, you're taking on their lineage, you're taking on their genetics, you're taking on the, Anyway.
Anyway, that's all I had.
I suppose, with sexuality, there's always a potential for creating another life, isn't there? That's like probably way beyond what any of us maybe even realized, I would say. I wouldn't think, so maybe that when he goes to say, when we have a deeper understanding of the real meaning of life, perhaps. Maybe we will all perhaps behave differently anyway, with a different understanding.
Well, I like one call someone said this, so I don't know who said it anyway, but it's like it's true. We all come from God, and we're all on a journey home back to God.
Anybody else? Well, for once we can, because usually we run over a few minutes, but we can close down a minute early, and everybody hang in there with their lockdown, and I'm hanging in there with mine, and
enjoy it.
Yep. Make the most of it.
I said I'm loving my lockdown.
That sounds like a good name for a song. I'm loving my lockdown.
That's funny.
All right, everybody.
God bless you all. Bye-bye.
All right, love you all. Thank you, Linda.
Love you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right. Bye-bye.